Hello and welcome to a new video. Today is Wednesday the 23rd of November 2016 and it's 20:36 minutes Central European Time. This video will probably be a little longer than usual. I will still try to keep it as brief as possible, though quite a few different aspects have to be mentioned and touched on. For starters, if you don't know who I am, please refrain from writing crap as a comment beneath. If you think the NSA needs to be told, please be my guest, tell the fucking NSA, see if they care. For starters, my name is Wolfgang Trapshaw. I come from the beautiful city of Vienna in Europe. This here actually is the all-new coat of arms for Vienna. The all-new part is that the shape of a crow is superimposed on the traditional coat of arms. Therefore, the butt-ugly black eel that used to encircle the coat of arms is done away with. So this is the all-new and updated coat of arms of my city. I am prime protector of mankind. No shit. What does that mean? That means I am the spearhead of the enslaved and subjected humans out there in the battle against the inhumans of Fex Mundi, being completely wicked sick and absane, not insane but absane. It's a different kind of defect in the brain. People out there who utilize inhuman technologies for severe mind control, mind and body control actually, and have been doing so for decades and decades and decades. Over the last couple of years I found out all about that, and I've been in a fascinating little phase of my life for several years now where I've been battling against them because they declared war on all mankind, and unfortunately, even though they are too delusional and abstain to at all understand it, that spells the end of mankind, and I just insist on, I don't want to have that. So what I did along the way was I restructured Europe, because I come from Vienna, which is pretty much dead bang in the middle of Europe, and I restructured Europe into what you can see here, the light colored parts of Europe. Stretches from Iceland way down here to Malta, these wee little islands, and from Portugal all the way over to the European part of Russia. And I did this in particular manners that if you find interesting, you will find other dedicated videos on my account here on YouTube. Moreover, I structured Europe into so-called domains, here color-coded. These domains are trade domains, okay? They are not political entities as such, as domains, and to be precise, even the entirety of Europe, being the European Confederation. Europe is going to be a confederated system, not is going to be, is actually already, since I reformed it, a confederated system and no more a unionistic system as in the old European Union. This is the flag of all of Europe, though that itself does not represent a political entity, because what some people might have gotten wrong, even in my dedicated to Europe videos, is that they sort of might have thought that Europe is one political entity. It is not. Europe is actually 47 plus 1 political entities, namely all of these little countries, and that plus 1 is that part of Russia which straddles the European continent. So in total that is 48 political entities. There are no 7 plus 1 political entities, and there is no one political entity, Europe. The political entities are the nations. The sovereign nations of Europe are the highest political entities in Europe. And I am Prime Minister of a new nation called Freiland. You can see the flag of Freiland here. And once more, Freiland is this here country, dead bang in the middle, part of European domain mid. The European domains are simply called by the directions on the compass, the lime green being north, this being northeast, this being southeast, this being south, southwest, northwest, and middle, and this here is European Russia. And for particular reasons, I have so far always stayed very, very clear of, in similar fashion, just sitting my ass down and restructure the North American continent. However, just over the last week or so, probably 2 weeks, more and more I realized that not just was it necessary, for the simple fact that the political entities that you out there know as United States of America and also Canada have in truth decades ago been secretly subdivided into all new to the public unknown political entities, and hence really no longer exist anyhow, and haven't existed for all practical purposes in decades. But moreover, even the situation on Canada is that in addition to that, the entire situation with them being part of the Commonwealth, what with the bloody royals on what you knew as United Kingdom, and all of that having made poof in Europe. And that is one more reason why not just the United States of America really had made poof a long time ago, but where I actually figured the truth is Canada, at least to the same amount, has really made poof, and likewise probably decades ago already. So I finally understood that it wasn't just the United States of America that had made poof, but also Canada to the same extent. But I understood something much more important, namely that unlike in Europe, where people have a history to look back that is full of nations changing, of nations taking new shape, and so on and so forth, namely literally 3,000 years of such history, the situation in North America is that you have no such history. The history of the USA and the history of Canada are basically just territories being claimed, and the previous owners being, for the most part, just slaughtered or hoodwinked one way or the other. And a lot of that territory, again and again, there's many such cases in the US history, for instance, simply being sold, literally sold, where there was no war or conflict or anything such, but where territory just changed hands by people selling it. And all of that results therein that there is nobody in North America who actually has at all familiarity with how new nations would be able to arise on North America. In addition to that, there are probably a whole lot of people on the North American continent who would think, well, fine, then so the USA might not exist anymore, but then so we have 50 individual sovereign nations, namely all of the previous states. And that is utter madness, because I assure you, in Europe we have 48 nations, and that is already a grotesque high number. It is manageable because Europe is Europe, but in North America it would not at all be manageable. This has also to do with the fact that these European nations traditionally are accustomed to, for the most part, looking after themselves and being able to self-sustain, whereas in these 50 states of the United States of America, for instance, any such ability practically does not exist, because you never were and never got accustomed, namely the individual states for themselves, to be able to be anywhere near to self-sustain. So in order to have any completely incompetent attempts at meddling at how to restructure the North American continent, I figured, I am prime protector of mankind, and I owe it to mankind, namely that mankind, to be liberated from the clutches of mind-fucking and mind-bending Fex Mundi on North America, to go and restructure North America. And that is what I did. And I'm going to explain you this in this here video. I know that's a long introduction. Bear with me. Now, I'm going to show you two things first that will leave you mind-boggled, but that's fine. Here, maybe look at the right one first. The right one actually has the second level units of, as it used to be, the USA and Canada, which means all the states and provinces and territories. Forget the color coding for a minute. But you see all the individual states, right? Here's California, here's Quebec, and so on and so forth. All the individual second level units, the 50 US states. Here's Hawaii being added here, and so on and so forth. This is, other than the color coding, what you are familiar with. Now, I understood that it was completely and utterly impossible to have all of these states simply become independent sovereign nations by themselves. That is grotesque for reasons I've already explained. Another thing you might want to consider is that the North American continent does not just consist, contrary to popular belief in North America, of the former Canada and the former USA, but also of Mexico. Mexico is part of the North American continent. Always was, always will be. What you see here also represents the to-come world trade zone called North America. Right? This is one continent, and moreover, this is one world trade zone. And Mexico is part of that. I do want to point that out. Here are actually the second level units of Mexico. And I didn't color this in here, but just to show you that. And instead of having, depending on how you'd count the second level units in Mexico, well over 60, almost 70 independent little nations, or almost nearing 100 if you count the second level units in Mexico, I figured I'm just going to meaningfully, with a whole lot of intelligence, a whole lot of deep thought, a whole lot of analysis that I put into this, going to restructure them into new nations. And that is what you see here. What you see here is the same thing here, just that I did away with the former second level borders within these new nations. Mexico remains unchanged. I do want to point this out. There is nothing happening to Mexico, but what you knew as the United States of America and what you knew as Canada is completely and utterly changed around. Insofar as that new, fully sovereign nations will arise out of the bits and pieces that Canada and the USA left behind. And you can see them here color-coded. Now, as you see, there is large ones and smaller ones. The size is not always representative of the population, actually. I will show you a little later in this video the actual numbers, both for size and for area and for population of these new nations. But I want you to understand that this is how the new nations have already taken shape. Now, I'll return to this in a few moments. I just want to show you this one here. I worked on also the flags for these new nations, and the oldest one of the set of flags that I did was actually from the 17th of November. I do want to mention this, and it was in the evening. I do want to mention this because I understand that, especially in North America, people are oddly taken and fond of the individual particular days. All of these new successor nations to the USA and to Canada came into being the same day, namely on the 17th of November 2016. And as it was in the evening here in Europe, even on the west coast of the North American continent, it also already was the 17th of November. So 17th of November is when all these new nations came into being. Let me show you, before we return, no, actually, I'm going to briefly return to there because I want to show you one more thing. Part of the restructuring of Europe, the map that I showed you before, had to do with Europe abandoning all territories it held outside of what actually geographically is Europe. There were ties from Greenland to Denmark in Europe. These ties were severed, and Greenland actually is, also geographically always was, North American. Greenland never was European geographically, which is why another thing I should point out, just as I pointed out that Mexico always was, is, and always will be part of North America, also Greenland, even though typically, even on Canadian maps, you don't have it included, even Greenland is and always was and always will be part of the North American continent, which is why if you wonder what is this big thing out there, that is actually Greenland. Okay, so the North American continent is all of this, and this is what I restructured. Mexico was not changed, but everything underwent changes, and in total you have, other than Mexico, 16 new nations having taken shape here, which means that the count total, including Mexico, is 17 nations that you now have on North America. 17 nations. If you look over here, you can see that some of these nations consist of merely 2 former states or provinces or whatnot, such as is the case here, some consist of 3, some consist of 5, and a little more. There are large countries and small countries, as I've explained, and all for good reason. I wanted, having the familiarity of the European situation, where you do have large and small countries, I wanted to make a feasible, working, diverse set of new nations on North America. Because contrary to a whole lot of people, North American people's worldview, big as a country does not necessarily always spell better. I do want to point this out. Which is why, if you look at the sheer size alone, you will see there are countries as small as this one here, and there are countries as large as this one here. All new nations. Okay? In total, 17 new nations, and I want to take you through each one of them. For that, I'll actually start with this here in addition. No, actually, I don't need this, come to think. Let's just work with, let's see, how do I do this? Right. First, I'm going to show you the new flags, national flags of all of these nations that were newly created on the North American continent. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 flags. Though actually come to think, there's Mexico missing. I want to add in, no, it's not missing, it was there, sorry. There. This is the only flag that already existed. I didn't touch the flag whatsoever because Mexico does not change, okay? So, you know Mexico, it's on the map down here, the kind of purpley rosé, well, it's more like a lilac color. That is Mexico. That didn't change. Nothing about Mexico changes. Everything else changed a little. So let us look at this flag. I'm going to start up here in the northwest. And for that, I know this video is a little chaotic. That is partially due to sabotaging routines, but bear with me on this. Let's use this one here. Up here in the northwest, this is what Alaska always was, and this here was Yukon Territory. Alaska and Yukon Territory find together in one new nation called Alaskan. Right? It's the Alas from Alaska and Con from Yukon. It's called Alaskan. Now mind you, nobody abolishes Alaska and nobody abolishes Yukon Territory. These will exist, at least for as long as the people find them necessary, as second level units. Okay? It's not that Alaska now is called Alaskan. Alaska is still called Alaska, and it still is what it always was, just that now it is a second level unit of a new nation which also has another second level unit, namely Yukon Territory. And together they form Alaskan, a new nation in the far northwest corner of the North American continent. This here is actually the flag, the national flag of Alaska. Now, if you're familiar with the Alaska flag as it used to be, you will find it is practically that. The only thing added is the nice little doggy here, which was not added because I like dogs, but because it is actually to be found on the Yukon flag. No shit. The Yukon flag has the dog on it, and I decided to add that dog to the national flag of Alaskan. Okay? This is basically the design for the Alaskan national flag, and the only changes you might want to do to further set it apart from the Alaska second level flag is maybe make the stars be white instead of yellow, because the yellow is how the Alaska flag has it. Maybe make this star here white only and keep those yellow as you please. But this is the Alaskan flag. The Alaskan flag is the old Alaska flag with the dog added from the Yukon Territory flag. I made use of a lot of such mixtures of elements in these flags, as you will see. So the first new nation up here in white, far northwest corner explained, it is actually a nation called Alaskan. You can see here right under the cursor, Alaska. Continuing eastwards, the large yellow, which consists of 2 former Canadian territories and Greenland. These are the former second level divisions of Greenland, by the way, but all of Greenland is included here. This is actually a new nation simply called Arctica, because it is the most Arctic region on Earth, and it is that which covers practically all the Arctic, and hence I figured it is only making a whole lot of sense to call it Arctica. This here is the national flag. It's a horrible resolution, I apologize. This here is the national flag of the new nation Arctica. It uses as an offset a traditional so-called northern flag, just because I figured it doesn't get more northern than Arctica, so to use any other kind of flag offset than the typical northern flag would be outright absurd. So I made use of that basic design, and the colors utilized here, the white and the blue and the red and the yellow, come from the territorial flags of the predecessor entities, so to speak, and found together in the new national flag. That too, namely working with bits and pieces, both design elements as well as colors from the several parts that make up these new nations, finding their way into the flag, is also a common theme to be beheld here. So the second new nation is up there in the north as you can get, being Arctica, a new North American nation. This is its national flag. Continuing east, you have this here, which is actually 2 former Canadian parts, namely Quebec and Newfoundland and Labrador. Those 2 meld together to form one new nation, and that new nation I decided to call Grand Quebec, which means Great Quebec, just because it's what Quebec used to be, but it's a little larger now because it got Newfoundland and Labrador, and thus I called it Grand Quebec. This is the national flag for Grand Quebec. I do want to point out that, yes, I know this is not the perfectly correct lily, because the petals actually are wrongly curved here. I do want to point out in general that I had very lousy image editing software at my disposal on my Mac, and some of these flags are, but a sheer make quality, not as good as they ought to be, and I did not find an easily usable, correctly shaped lily for Quebec anywhere on the internet, believe this or not. Nonetheless, this is the flag. It actually is Quebec blue being utilized, and the white lily as on the former Quebec flag, which will remain the Quebec flag, because even there, you know, it's the second level units that will remain completely intact. This holds true for all new nations in North America. I did not cut apart a single second level unit on North America, not one. This differs from Europe, where I did in fact cut apart second level units, but here I did not. On North America, no second level unit is being cut apart. And this horizontal element actually comes from the former flag for Newfoundland and Labrador. In fact, this right end pointing to that direction, and I decided to mirror that. And this is the national flag for Grand Quebec. So let us return there. So we've covered Alaskan, we covered Arctica, and we covered Grand Quebec. We return back to the west coast. You have a turquoisey new nation here. These colors here actually don't have any particular meaning. I just tried to utilize as many different colors as I possibly could. Okay, so there's no deeper meaning in turquoise. This just serves to illustrate what belongs together to form a new nation. As you can see, forming a new nation, and Hawaii is being included, and for completeness sake also, and I didn't put them here on the map, also all of the wee little individual islands to be found throughout the Pacific that were until the USA made poof considered US territories are considered part of this new nation. This new nation consisting of 3 US states, California, Oregon, Washington, and British Columbia from what used to be Canada finding together, and Hawaii being added, very important. And this new nation is actually called, not very creative, but very appropriate, Pacifica. Pacifica is a new nation, and this is the flag of Pacifica. I want to explain something about this flag. As you can see, it is the only of these flags that is actually a vertical flag, not a horizontal flag. It has 4 large stars representing the 4 large territories on the continent that find together here to form this new nation. And originally I started with the design of this flag also in horizontal mode rather than vertical mode, which is why you actually have waves here with crests. And then I figured that the whole thing works significantly better as a flag if you actually tilt it by 90 degrees to make it a vertical flag, which really means that this has to be retouched, because if you see this as an aerial view of the ocean shore and the waves washing ashore, of course this would be more rounded than pointy ended, right? But due to the fact that I placed these stars when it was still horizontally, they were actually upright. But turning at 90 degrees, and of course a 5-pointed star being 70 degrees apart, now they actually ever so slightly tilted sideways to the right, which gives their alignment a magnificent energy and dynamic nature. I do want to point out that this absolutely needs to be maintained on the flag, and the waveforms have to be corrected to be just a little rounded out and not so pointy, but this is generally the flag for Pacifica. Pacifica being the large new nation here on the west coast. Further on, we have 3 former Canadian parts, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba, which actually found together as one new nation. That nation being called, based on the yellow nation up here being called Arctica, I decided this nation's name, most ideal name really, would be Subarctica, because that is really what it is. It is covering the subarctic territories, and this here is the flag of Subarctica. It utilizes the 3 second-level units flags coming together on one unified flag. The colors are interlinked here, as you can see, and I utilize these 3 graphical images from their provincial flags. This is the new national flag for the new nation of Subarctica. Once more, Subarctica, these 3 former Canadian territories coming together. Continuing further east, here you have Ontario, what used to be Ontario, and still is Ontario, of course, plus quite a few states added here from what used to be the USA. This here, in this very dark turquoisey color, is actually one new nation called Lakesland. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it is called Lakesland. Here you have, without the borders of the states, Lakesland. This is Lakesland. And this is the flag of Lakesland. You just have the Great Lakes here on a gray background. Actually, because it's 6 former states, that is Ontario, and 5 former US states fighting together, the gray tone utilized here is actually in hexadecimal 666666. So 6 sixes for the 6 that find together, and it has one large 6-pointed star here. This flag actually, this yellow should actually be golden. I do want to point this out. This is a golden star, and it has a thin golden rim around it. The lakes are to be a light blue, and this is a 666666 hexadecimal gray, though on elaborate flags you might interweave the occasional silvery thread through this, not to the extent that it appears all silver, but that it has a slight silvery gleam. This should, though, be thoroughly gold. Okay, so you have a gray, slightly silvery gleam having gray, you have the blue lakes identifiable, and you have a solidly gold six-pointed star representing how they all found together and bordered by gold. That is the national flag of Lakesland. Sometimes, as you can see here beneath it says Layla, sometimes people find nicknames for their land, for their nation. And I can imagine that Lakesland might result in something like Layla, as in the Eric Clapton song Layla. So I don't suggest this as an official nickname or any such, but chances are, if you're from there, you might want to call your nation by a female name, and Layla might be a very appropriate name for that. Well, that's just as a little addendum. The official name is Lakesland. This is the national flag. I do want to point out that all of these flags have, for instance, the aspect ratio from at least one of the predecessor states or provinces, right? So they are very different aspect ratios. This one, for instance, is an extreme aspect ratio. This one here probably being the least extreme. I don't want to go into the details here. You can just take a screenshot and measure the pixels and the aspect ratio by yourselves. There's a lot to explain that I will skip here. But I want to introduce you to these new nations. So this was Lakesland. If you continue further east, you get this here kind of violet colored new nation. Let's see it without the state borders. There you are. This is actually the classic New England area, though added to it are three formerly Canadian parts, in New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and St. Edward's Island. Right, so that in total it is all of these territories, 9 coming together, 9 bits and pieces finding together in one new nation, and that has the name New Albion. Why New Albion? Because the old Albion has practically been abolished, so to speak, what with Fex Mundi and Bonifacfac and whatnot, on what you know as the British Isles. And you always called the territory up there New England, or at least the American parts of that territory. And I figured something approximating that would be easily accepted by the people living there. So I figured New Albion is a very nice name for that nation. Now, New Albion's flag is actually triangular. The black is not actually part of the flag, right? This is a triangular flag, and hence, in addition with this one here being a vertical flag, is the only other case where it's not a classical horizontal rectangular flag. Okay, this is a vertical flag, Pacifica, and this is actually a triangular flag. It has a yellow rim, not golden, this actually is yellow, navy blue background, a yellow large anchor, a total of 9 stars in white, representing the 3 newly added former Canadian parts, and the 6 that always made up New England, and it has a wide sword here to the side. New Albion, in fact, the white elements, meaning the stars and the sword, might actually have an ever so slight silvery element to them on elaborate flags, also utilizing metallic threads in them and whatnot. Though it should be very light silver, it should really seem very white. But this is the new national flag for that new nation of New Albion. New Albion being these here 6 plus 3 finding together to be a new nation, New Albion. So, as a reminder, Alaskan, because at first you really need to get yourself familiar with these names. Alaskan, Arctica, Pacifica, Subarctica, Riverland, I forgot Grand Quebec, I'm sorry. So, Alaskan, Arctica, Grand Quebec, Pacifica, Subarctica, Lakesland, and New Albion. Continuing, we arrive at this here, being 3 former states of the United States finding together. These 3 are here. This nation is called Trifortica. What does that mean? Tri, because it's three. I think that part is easily understood. Fortica, because of that being a familiar ending to words such as America and whatnot. And the fort is actually a Latin stem of a word which can mean for two things, namely for generally strength, such as fortitude or another similar related words, but it can also stand for fortune and so on and so forth. And as the three states that find together here are all bringing their very own strengths and their very own treasures, so to speak, to this new nation, I figured Trifortica is a magnificent name for this nation. Add to it, the shape of it sort of kind of reminded me of a flame, and that is why I decided that a stylized flame element would be the ideal flag. I do want to point out about this, I utilized a random pre-existing, not a random, but a pre-existing clip art for the flame that I found on the internet. You should not do that. This is just a design guideline, and I would suggest that these three actually are of equal size, okay? And that they nonetheless be red, orangey, and yellow, because that's what flames come like typically, depending on what chemical substance you burn. I'm aware of that, but still, that is what a flame typically looks like. And I decided to put it on a brown background, just because I realized that one of the three states that form this nation, even though I must admit, top of my head, I don't quite recall which of these it was, but even though it is in any way, whichever it was, a landlocked state, it actually had navy blue for its state flag color. And I generally wondered over some of the US state flags, but I respected them, and I did take bits and pieces and brought them together for the new national flags. And you know, this being a case where an all-new flag was created, such as was the case for Pacifica, this is actually Trifortica, three states fighting together. And yeah, and that is that. I think let's see, maybe I should take this, where was it? Here. I should take this in as well so that I can show you precisely. Trifortica being Idaho, Nevada, and Utah. Okay, finding together. Idaho, Nevada, and Utah finding together. Now, continuing eastwards, we have a new nation consisting of two former US states. This new nation is consisting of Wyoming, this is a horrible resolution, sorry. I do have this in a larger resolution, I think, because you really can't read anything here, I just realized. Let's see. Here. That should be better. Wyoming and Montana coming together, and they form the new nation of Wyona. Not Winona, right? Wyona, as you can read up there, Wyona. It's Wyoming and Montana, Wyona. The flags and elements are used from the Wyoming and Montana flags for the states. This is the national flag of both of them. I do want to point out that these two colors actually blend into one another or grip into one another here, and the intent was to symbolize that you kind of start spelling a W because it's Wyona. It's Wyona. Okay, this is the idea behind this kind of shape. I understand that that's a bit of a faint idea and that you have to add that to understand it. Nonetheless, I just want to show you that some thought went into this precise arrangement. This is the flag of the new nation Wyona. It is not a very large nation. By sheer area, not the smallest. By population, actually one of the smallest, as we shall see when I get to the statistics and all of that. Now, continuing further east, you arrive at another big one. Namely, let me show you that again in this one here. Namely this is terrible, sorry, this is because it's transparent from the back. North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, and Kansas find together here. These five, Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, and Kansas, finding together to become one new nation. And that nation has a magnificent name. I absolutely love the name of this nation. In fact, I'm rather fond of this nation for a whole lot of other reasons, some of which I will touch a little later on. And this is the flag of it, and you can see it is called Minikota. Let me say that another few times. Minikota. Minikota. It's actually Min from Minnesota, the Ne comes from Nebraska, the Ka from Kansas, and Dakota from the two Dakotas. It's Minikota. This new nation, consisting of these five former United States states, is one new nation called Minikota. I'm going to say more about it a little later in this video. But I want you to know that this is its flag. What does it resemble? Actually, the colors were taken from some of the state flags again. What this means is the hearts of the five parts beat for this land, and it lies exactly in the middle point, as you can see here. Minikota actually is in the middle of the North American continent. It's in the middle northwest, and it's in the middle north-south. This is the heart, so to speak, of North America. And because of that, the hearts beat for it of these five parts that make up this nation. It lies in the middle point, and they want to be the guiding star for all of North America. Alright? Now 100% not in a North America conquering fascist kind of sense, in a positive sense. I do want to point out about this design that I am oddly fond of it, with the exception of the precise shape of the hearts here. Actually, the lower end of the hearts in this here utilized font curve inwards. There are also hearts that curve outwards. This reminds me too much of the heart shape as you find it on playing cards. That is not what I intend to represent on this flag here. But it is five hearts surrounding a star with a symbolic center point in the middle. And this here outside element was actually also taken from one of these state flags, as were the general color combination. This is the flag of Minikota. Minikota. The heart, really, of the North American continent. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Well, let's cover the others, and then I'm actually going to make this a two-part video because there's just too much to say about this. So we've recently had Trifortica, Wyona, Minikota. Continuing further east, we arrive at this here nation in light blue. You will see that there is a total of 8 states, namely all lined up along the Mississippi. This will actually be one nation, a very large, also population-wise large nation, that will be called, what a surprise, Riverland. And this will be its flag. This is a very daring modern approach to a flag, and you know, once more, I want to just, there are some flags that are completely new designs, some other flags I didn't change at all, like the Mexico flag, it's the only such. Some I just added a little element to one of the second level flags. There's diverse approaches to these flags. This is one case where I designed an all new national flag. It has 3, because 8 former states find together, 3 west of the Mississippi and 5 east of the Mississippi. These are 8-pointed white stars, to which I should say that my fonts installed on my Mac offered only a limited variety of 8-pointed stars. I had quite a few different 5-pointed stars available to me, but not so many 8-pointed stars. This is probably not the most beautiful 8-pointed star you could find. I suggest it be replaced with a more beautiful one, but the design should be obvious. Each green stripe represents one of the former states finding together here. In total there are 8, 3 of them west of the Mississippi, 5 of them east of the Mississippi, And it's a very subtle thing, but I assure you, having built this flag, the stripe for the Mississippi is actually a wee little broader than the stripe for the individual parts that are along the Mississippi. It's one of these little subtleties that flags convey in a very impressive way. So this is the flag of Riverland. Once more, let's go to this one here. Being Wisconsin, Iowa, Illinois, Missouri, Kentucky, Tennessee, Arkansas, and Mississippi. Okay, these states find together. Now you might ask, why isn't Minnesota and why isn't Louisiana which are along the Mississippi, part of Riverland? For particular reasons, actually. Particular reasons such as that was supposed to have an access to the lakes, that culturally really belongs here, and also was supposed to indicate that the river does not belong to Riverland. It starts outside of Riverland, so to speak, and it ends outside of Riverland, so to speak, and that was good. You will see, the thing is, in North America, people are accustomed to thinking as one country. You have now, in the future, the interest of 17 countries total on the entire continent to make compatible with one another. And that is that even those who live in Riverland, who live in that new nation called after that river, Mississippi, need to understand that in the big picture, the Mississippi is not their possession. Okay? And for that, I wanted to leave Minnesota out and I wanted to leave Louisiana out, just for completeness sake. But Riverland, explained. Riverland in the light blue here being another new nation. Continuing further east, you arrive here with the red parts being another new nation consisting of, here actually a different color, but ignore that please, this was an older map that I worked on. Well, anyhow, consisting of New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, West Virginia, and Virginia, making the new nation of New Columbia. And for this flag, I guess you see where its design heritage comes from. The only thing changed is there's just 5 stars and there's just 5 stripes. I wanted to have one of the nations of North America to actually reference to that old flag, because anything else would seem as if anybody were afraid of that old flag. I can tell you all about flags that people are afraid of in Europe and how that is psychologically a horrendous thing. And I wanted someone in North America to say, no, we ain't afraid of that. We understand Fex Mundi, we understand the whole shit, but hey, it's part of a history nonetheless. And our design of the flag is based on that old flag that everybody was familiar with. Just that now, this flag only is for what is red here, and not the entire bloody thing, just what is red here. This is a nation called New Columbia. I call this nation New Columbia for several reasons. First of all, also keeping that design. There is, of course, the famous character of Lady Columbia, which New Columbia will be able to keep using because they will still have that pattern, that design. And in addition to that, there, of course, lies Washington, and it then will really literally be District of Columbia, just that it'll be New Columbia. The new should really be added, it should not be dropped, and be it to further be able to not confuse it with Colombia down in South America. So New Columbia is the nation in red here. It's not a very large nation by area. There are quite an amount of people living there, as we shall see. But new nation, yet again, New Columbia. Let's continue. Here, we have 3 former United States states finding together. Arizona, Colorado, and New Mexico. They find together as the new nation Corizoko, right? Colorado, Arizona, New Mexico, Corizoko. Corizoko is a new nation. The flag utilizes some of the symbolism and some of the colors of the predecessor states I do want to say about this particular flag that first of all, something about the temperature of these colors, or the hue of these colors, got a little off. This is not quite the right yellow, not quite the right red, and not quite the right blue. I want to point this out. Add to it that as a template offset, I use the old imperial Japanese flag. You might want to retouch this flag to such an extent that the actual yellow sun disk here is enlarged in diameter till it covers about a total of 2/3 vertically, so that it is about this large. And at the same time, maybe make the sun symbol a little smaller. Okay, but generally this is how the flag is going to look. And I actually also think that this is a flag that is very appropriate for Korizoko, and that the citizens of Korizoko are gonna be very fond of very, very quickly. Continuing eastwards, we arrive at another new nation consisting of what used to be Oklahoma, Texas, and Louisiana. And once more, and I'll keep saying this another few times in the second part of the video, these states will remain what they are as second-level units. And I want to make this especially clear to, in this particular case of Texas. There need not be any one Texan out there who should misunderstand this as, no one's going to abolish Texas. Not true. I'm not going to abolish Texas. This is not abolishing Texas. Texas will remain. Oklahoma will remain. Louisiana will remain. It's just that these three will fight together to form a new nation. It used to be that Texas was part of a nation of 50 states. Now Texas is part of a nation of 3 second-level states. And that nation is actually called, I love this name too, Otexiana. O from Oklahoma, Tex from Texas, and Iana from Louisiana. Otexiana. This is the Otexiana flag. And this is one of my favorite flags of all of these flags. Now I am sort of kind of fond of all of them, but this really is one of my favorite flags on the North American continent. This is an all-new design. This is not based on the predecessor flags. What you actually have here is a very particular hue of blue, which henceforth will be called Otexiana blue. There is a particular way you arrive at the RGB values for this. If you were to take the O, the Tex, and the Iana and try to allot the values of these letters to red, green, blue values, you arrive at this particular blue. It's 2/3 blue, and the lower third is actually the mathematical contrasting color to that, which is if you take the 255 max RGBs and deduct the values that you have of this blue, you wind up with this, and it's 3 actually. See, you need to count this right. These are 1, 2, 3 stars. If you say, no, this is it's 2 stars. No, it's actually 3 stars. Because it's 3 former states finding together. However, I decided to do this in a way that even the most Texan can look at this flag and say, yeah, okay, that's the nation I'm part of. Okay? Though it is 3 stars, actually. The innermost, the outer rim here and this inner area are equally broad, and the innermost touches the horizon line here. It stands on the horizon line, basically, and the outermost actually goes beneath the horizon, which, to me, if you look at this long enough, I'm not making this up, you get the idea that you're in the saddle and having almost a bit of an eagle perspective out over the land. I love me this flag. I want to make this very clear. This is a magnificent flag, and it's for the new nation, Otexiana. Okay? Otexiana, a new nation of North America, consisting of Oklahoma, Texas, and Louisiana. Now, further east, we already had Riverland. We have 2 here left to cover. The first being pretty easy. It's North Carolina and South Carolina finding together as a new nation simply called Carolina. And for that, this is the flag. This Liberty Crescent moon here actually comes from a historic flag from, if I remember this right, South Carolina. And what I did here was take the from here on to the right, what was the recent North Carolina flag, which was just halfway red and halfway white, but on the left side utilized this yellow for the writing, and I decided to add that yellow as an equally broad third strip here to the right. This is the flag of Carolina, and this Liberty will be thoroughly deserve to be found on the flag, because of course you have to bear in mind that this will mean that the nation of Carolina will have liberated itself, the people of Carolina, the humans of Carolina will have liberated themselves from all the inhuman facsimile filth that they have living amongst them. So they will fully deservedly be able to carry the word liberty on their flag. Okay, and I think this is it's a very simplistic flag. It is very closely tied to the state flag's history, but I'm also very sure that the people of the new nation Carolina are very quickly gonna really love this flag. So that was the two Carolinas finding together as one nation of Carolina. And finally, down here in the southeast, we have Alabama, Georgia, and Florida finding together as one new nation, namely this one here. Look at the name here, please. It's called Amerija. Why is it called Amerija? There was a guy called Amerigo Vespucci, who actually was the guy after whom America was named America. And since countries typically have a female name, I figured I'd just make his name Amerigo a female version and make it Amerija. The Ija is really from Georgia, or the Ja. The Re is from Florida, and the A is from Alabama, so it's Amerija. This flag is a very simplistic design. I think this is a very strong design. It's the only flag that has something like this added to it. I do want to point out here that due to the limited class of my image editing software, I wasn't able to do this quite the way it should be. What you have white here as a background should actually be transparent in the sense that it should also be navy blue. This was also taken from a historic flag down there from one of these three states, and it was the only one where on this here element it didn't say Constitution, because the truth is the US American Constitution is little more than a historic document. Because what you need to understand is, hands down, for 17 years, every ruling regarding even Supreme Court and whatnot, ruling regarding the Constitution has been severely manipulated and decided over by Fex Mundi. You have to accept, and I know there's immense sentimental value attached to your North American, to your U.S. American Constitution. You have to understand that it is a historic document. It still serves as a very rough orientation guideline, yes, though you should really understand that even though for the 18th century it was kick-ass, for the 21st century, my dear soon-to-be fully liberated people of North America, it is no more than a historic document. I do not mean to belittle your Constitution, but it is no more than a historic document. So it's good that it doesn't say Constitution. What it says instead is, and I didn't change that, wisdom, justice, and moderation. That's good words. That is good words. Wisdom, justice, and moderation. I'm not sure if you need the little fella here. Actually, I suggest you do away with the fella. The year 2016 was added by me. It said the original year here. I replaced it with 2016. It is the only flag that will actually say 2016 on it. No other flag will do that. And when it comes to such words, as far as I'm concerned, the only true motto, I forgot to mention it, is Estu Perpetua, which means something like, this is to be forever, this is forever, okay? The three strengths and fortunes of Trifortica finding together, and this is to be forever. This is the only thing I'd really call a motto. This is actually an existing motto from one of the three individual states that form this nation. Another one had Battleborn, which is inappropriate for the nation, right? The state is not going to be changed, and it can keep that Battleborn motto, but as a nation, Battleborn is not accurate because, I gave birth to it, so to speak, and hence I assure you this was not Battleborn. It was necessary once I came to understand how no one on North America would have the experience to look back on and or would not bring horrendous paradigms to the attempt to find a solution for successor nations of what is to follow Canada and North America. So the only real motto really on any of these flags is Estu Perpetua. There is this flag that says liberty. I do want to point out that no one in the world, and also no one in North America, should ever misinterpret liberty as a motto. You know, a motto is kind of like New Year's resolutions. Liberty is not the category of New Year's resolutions. The liberty on this crescent moon that you will have on this flag will be a victory medal, so to speak. Once in the nation of Carolina, they will fly this flag, they will have liberated themselves from each and all creatures of Fex Mundi. And they will deserve to carry that crescent moon saying liberty. And that is not a motto. That is an achievement at the point they fly this flag. Okay? And here it says these three words: wisdom, justice, moderation. Other than that, you don't really have any mottos or any such on flags. So, once more, all of these second level units come together in the color-coded way. Mexico remains unchanged, once more, and they form these nations. That is 1, 2, 3, no, actually, let's see. It's a little hard to count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 nations on the North American continent. Yukon being added to Alaska, making Alaskan, Arctica, Pacifica, Subarctica, Lakesland, Grand Quebec, New Albion, New Columbia, Riverland, Minikota, Wyona, Trifortica, Corizoko, Otexiana, I think we had Riverland, Amerija and Carolina, and down here unchanged Mexico. That was the first part, and I'm gonna stop this video here and I'll start record the second part.